Year to all of you guys. It's so great to have you with me, and I'm really proud of you because the fact that you signed up to hear this lecture shows me that you are a very devoted student and you want to be clear. That this title is Getting Clear. And there's so many benefits about being clear. First of all, when you're clear, you feel good and your relationships work better. And it's really the best gift you could give yourself, being clear, because you feel good. And it's the best gift you give others, especially your main relationship, because people love to be with people who are clear. And of course, you'll have better health and your business will work better. So I think getting clear is really important. And somebody who's clear, I mean, they're not dragging the past with them. They're kind of free of the past. They're in present time, and they're not constantly rehashing the past, and they're not stuck in the future. They're clear that they're happy now in the moment. And they don't have a lot of baggage, you know. And they've worked out the 5 biggies, which we'll talk about. So those are some of the, basically I just wanted to start with the benefits of getting clear. Now, some of this material in the beginning I got from a book. There was a chapter, The Student's Relationship with the Teaching. And I liked that chapter so much I took notes, but I failed to write down the author of that book, and I read it a long time ago. And I can't find the book, so I'm sorry I cannot give you the title of that book. I'll have to figure that out later. But there was a chapter, The Student's Relationship to the Teaching. And of course, if you want to be clear, you do have to work on yourself and do the work. You have to do the work of enlightenment. Australia's coming in. Hi. We're talking about being clear, and I was saying I'm really happy those of you that are here. The fact you're here means to me that you are really committed to your process. And being clear has so many benefits. People love to be with people who are clear, so it really helps you and helps your relationship. And the basic thing is you'll never feel lasting fulfillment unless you realize your true essential self, your real self. And your essential real self is free of the past, is free of the garbage, and is clear. So, unless you're clear, you won't be fulfilled, right? The main thing to get is the world is a big classroom, and every situation are classes that we've designed for ourselves. So if you see it that way, then everything that happens is a spiritual opportunity. So I used to say things like, life is an ashram. Life is an ashram. I go to ashrams, but right now, and they really do heal me, but right now we can't even go to the ashram. We haven't been able to go to Harakan for 2 years, and we may not even be able to go this March. So I used to go to Harakan to help myself get clear, but can't do that. So I have to look at life as an ashram, and every moment is a spiritual opportunity. If you get a situation that occurs that's kind of challenging and upsetting, it is a spiritual opportunity to get more clear. And you need to study it and how you deal with it. So everything that happens is a class for you to help develop yourself. And if you look at that way, you don't get upset about things. You just say, oh, I wonder what's the lesson here that I need to learn from this situation. And how did I attract this situation? And it becomes, kind of fun. And if you use every situation as a way to get more clear, then it's more fun. There is such a thing that we have called holes, H-O-L-E. These are holes in ourselves that, it's a part of our essence that has a hole in it. And it's a deficiency. And we got these holes from childhood. I mean, when we didn't get the love we deserved, or dramas or traumas or severe incidents happened in our childhood, we got a hole like a hole in your aura or a hole in your consciousness. So what we want to do is clear out those holes and fill them. And you can do all kinds of meditation and so on, and that won't last unless you confront these deficiencies or these holes. You can meditate, but what about these holes you have, or I call them deficiencies? You've got to confront them, and you've got to look at them and clear them and study them. So that we want to do so we can fulfill our potential. But we have to work on ourselves, and we have to be on the path. Now, this is a lifelong thing. Some people say to me, oh yeah, I got rebirthed in 19 so-and-so and I had 5 rebirths. Well, that isn't staying on the path. It's a lifelong path, and breathwork is a lifelong thing. You're never done. Some people say, well, when am I done? No, you're never done, because there's always something higher. I always say, until we're like Jesus and we can resurrect the dead and heal people instantly and walk on water, until we're like that, we have something to clear. So I don't judge myself if I have stuff coming up to clear, because it's forever until it's ongoing. I mean, even the yogis and the gurus have something higher than them. And in India, they have this thing called leelas, and a leela is a divine play of the guru. They arrange a situation for you to crack your case. So they might put you in a certain situation. And I had so many leelas on relationships before I met Marcus, because that was my field, you know. So Babaji literally put these men in front of me constantly to work out my case with relationships. It was part of my training. So one time I went to my guru, Shastriji, who was Babaji's high priest, and he was my guru after Babaji took Samadhi. And I said to him, I am sick and tired of leelas. I was fed up with all these different things. And he said, my dear, leelas go on forever, even for the yogis and the gurus and the saints. That was his answer. And so then I thought, oh, I get it. Until I'm like Jesus and I can walk on water, I just have something to clear. So I just considered it my path, and I was going to stay on my path and do the work. You want to fulfill your potential, but you have to work on yourself, and you have to commit to staying on the path and not run away, you know. And I've had people where they took the LRT like 20 years ago, and I told them rebirthing is a lifelong path, and they didn't do it. So they come to me 10 years later. I haven't seen them for 10 years. Oh, Sondra, I wished I had listened to you and stuck it out with you, because I got this major illness and blah, blah, blah. And then they come dragging back, see? And don't wait until you have some major illness and you have to get help. You just stay on the path and you keep doing the work, and it's a part of your daily life and so on. But people don't want to commit to the path because they're afraid they'll lose their freedom, you know? Oh, if I really commit to this, I won't have any free time or blah, blah, blah. But that's not true. Your free time will feel better after you've been clear. So committing to the path, you end up with more free time when you feel better. Okay, so you have to then face your unconscious fears. Now, I didn't think I had any fears. I've been a fearless person my whole life. My mother said, Sondra, you had no fears of anything except in a bank. And I thought, what? She said, you used to get terrified in the bank. I had no explanation for this. And she said, you are fearless except in the bank. Well, I could never understand that. And then when I went to Babaji, through a long process, he put me in a situation where I had to be in this bank for a long time and nobody was in there, and I went through my whole memory of being killed in a bank. And then that was what was always coming up for me as a child. So I had this unconscious fear of banks. Well, then the rest of my life, I felt really happy and fearless also. And then the pandemic hit, and I had to stay home, as you know, and a lot of unconscious fears came up that I didn't even know I had, because I started doing this breathing once a week with Babaji, long, you know, like 3-hour breeze, liberation breathing for 3 hours. And I asked Babaji to 10, and I'm writing a book, as you probably heard, Outside the Box with Babaji as a result of that. And I had fears come up in those sessions that I was surprised at. You know, like a common fear that I had suppressed was something might go wrong. Something might go wrong. And I had no idea I had that fear. That was down there. I think a lot of people have that. You know, it's not going to work out. Something's going to go wrong sooner or later. You know, I can't have lasting happiness because something will go wrong. So that was one fear I had to work out. And these fears were pretty suppressed. And the other fear I had that came up in the pandemic is, I don't know, what if I get some condition I can't ever get over? That was another suppressed fear. I might get some condition in my body that I can never get over. And I think a lot of people have that fear too. So you have to face these fears when you're on the path and you're working on yourself. And you know, the best way is private sessions if you need help with that. Then you have to watch on this path of getting clear. You have to watch your indulgence. Are you lazy? Are you indulging in laziness? Are you indulging in depression? Are you indulging in paranoia or catastrophic thinking? Are you indulging in self-criticism? You know, or fear, guilt, and anger. Those are the biggies. Fear, all fears, all guilt, and all anger. So then when you start really staying on the path and working on yourself to get clear, you have to clear all the fears, all the guilts, and all the angers. And I made that a project for myself during this pandemic. And Babaji really helped me in these rebirthings work on that. I'm going to be reading that book. I'm looking for 12 volunteers. Maybe you guys want to be the first 12. And I'm giving it for free. I'm supposed to read that book out loud to students online while they lie down. They have to be lying down to listen to this. I'm going to start doing that on Babaji's Samadhi Day, February 14th. So just remind me to say more about that later. You have to be willing, if you want to get clear, to make changes in your patterns. You know, you have to know what your patterns are. What's your pattern in relationships? You know, are you avoiding a relationship? Are you having a hard time in a relationship with a lot of drama? You know, what are your patterns? Now, some patterns, to me, I found are very addictive. You know, there's addictions to substances, which is hard enough. But if you take away the substance and it's not available, then it's easier to give up the substance, right? But the pattern is a bit more addictive because how do you take away the pattern and get rid of this addiction to the pattern? So I found out that I have addictions to patterns. Well, I used to have the pattern that men leave me because my father was always sick and dying and so on, going to the hospital, and then he did die when I was a teenager. So I always had this pattern, men leave me. And the amazing thing is, these guys I was living with and I was having a good time, and they'd come home and they'd say, I have to leave. I'd say, what? Are you upset with me? And they'd say, no. Are you upset with this relationship? They'd say, no, I just have to leave. I was totally, like, unconsciously pushing them out of the door. So this was a very deep pattern that I had to get over. So one way I found to get over addictive patterns is to consciously go to the extreme opposite. When you're working on yourself, you say, okay, I have this pattern, men leave. What would be the extreme opposite? The extreme opposite would be someone who stayed with me all the time, okay? So I started meditating on the extreme opposite, and then I created Marcus, who's with me all the time. But I had to really work on this pattern, which was addictive, of men leaving me, and I had to focus on the extreme opposite. So, you know, so if you have a thought, relationships or whatever negative, what is the extreme opposite? Okay, so you have to be willing to change your patterns. Okay, the problems are not going to be solved by making more money, getting married, having kids. The problems are coming from inside of you, you know? You're not going to solve these problems inside of you by something external. So a lot of people say, well, I'll be happy when I get married. No, marriage accentuates all your problems. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that you're going to be happier. In fact, you might be less happy. So Having a marriage or having kids or making more money is not going to solve these problems you're working on. You have to work on the difficulties inside of you, and that's where the work really needs to be. Okay. You can regain everything you've lost in your childhood by working on yourself. But there's no resolution to the suffering unless you work on yourself. Okay? Then I found out that sometimes I was addicted to suffering because suffering in my church was holy. Okay? I was raised in the Lutheran church, you know, I did baptism, Sunday school, Bible school, confirmation camp, church, college, you name it, I did it all, you know. So then, you know, suffering was considered holy. So I had to face, oh, I think I need to suffer to be holy. So that was another pattern I had to give up, working on myself. So you have to have, number one, a commitment to work on yourself, a dedication, and a real sincerity, to be clear. Commitment to work on yourself, dedication to the process, and sincerity. But your unconscious is going to raise hell. Your unconscious doesn't even want to give up these patterns. So this is why a lot of people quit. You know, we start out, we have some good clients. We've had one guy who was very rich, and he was really in a mess. He got fired from his job for drinking. His wife ran off with a different billionaire, and his divorce, and blah, blah, blah. And we thought, okay, great, he's really going to go. He had 2 sessions, quit. Never saw him again. And his unconscious started raising hell. He didn't want to face it. So when you commit to working on yourself and to really getting clear, you have to understand your unconscious is going to raise hell and try to avoid the process. Try to talk you out of it. When I started rebirthing people in Hollywood when I was younger, I was living in LA. So I was rebirthing some movie stars, and if I told you their names, you'd know them. Famous movie stars. It was so hard. I couldn't believe it. I thought they were going to be easier because they're public figures and they're used to a lot of energy. They were harder because why? Movie stars are paid not to be themselves, right? They're paid to be an act. So I come in there and I'm saying, being your real self, and they got totally confused. They couldn't handle that. So I never got a movie star past session 5. I wanted to get them through 10. They all quit at session 4, because session 5 is when you really start changing, right? So the last guy I did was a director of a famous movie, and I said to him, okay, I've never gotten anyone in Hollywood through session 5, so I'm not going to do you unless you agree to go through all 10 sessions. And we shook hands on it. And he promised me. And I gave him a picture of Babaji just to make, and guess what? He only did session 2 and he just escaped from me. So there, you have to get, there's a lot of resistance for people staying with the work. But you have to see through your conflicts, your guilt, your fear, your anger in order to be clear. And so by staying with the work, you can get through all that. And going for your essence, which is your true self, should be your primary concern. There's this lesson, I am as God created me. And Marcus said it's the only time that one lesson is repeated. 3 times. There's 3 lessons that say the same thing, and that's the one. That's my, I am as God created me. It means I am my true essence. If God created you perfect, okay, then that's who you really are. And when you're clear, you get that. So that should be your primary concern, is going for your true essence. I am as God created me. And you cannot value external things over your essence. We're here to fulfill our potential. And most of us are not anywhere nearly filling our potential. When you filling your potential also includes what's your mission. You know, everybody has a mission here. we were in the car with this person the other day, and she was telling me she thought she was spiritual and blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, then what do you see yourself as your mission? Because now her whole life is changing because her parents have both died now. Her father just died, and she has a real opportunity to come out in a new way. And I said, what do you think your spiritual mission is? The car went dead silence. She didn't say a word, and the energy just dropped. It was like I had asked some kind of question that really disturbed her, apparently. She didn't answer me, and the whole car, the energy went down. Well, she could have said, I don't know what's my mission. Maybe you can help me find it. Well, she could have said that, right? She wouldn't even comment, like I had asked some horrible question. So I was trying to help her fulfill her potential, but she didn't take it that way. Okay, so at the beginning you'll put up a big fight because we want to keep our defense mechanisms. The ego wants us to stay stuck. The ego wants us to have our defenses. So you've got to be prepared that, okay, maybe the very day you need a session, you're avoiding it. So this guy called us, one of our former clients, and he was telling us this, that, and the other, and some medical problems. And okay, fine. I listened to all his medical problems, and I said, yeah, I think I could help you with that if you have a private session. He said, yeah, I probably need it. But did he sign up for one? No. And he can afford it. He has money. He wouldn't sign up for a session even though he admitted he needed. Now, that's the kind of thing you run into with people's resistance. They want to keep their defense mechanisms. So you want to get what's valuable. External things are fun and nice, but they're not what's valuable. You want to get a sense of your being, your true self, that's valuable, and that you are valuable. You are valuable yourself. So doing the work and getting clear what's valuable is important. You don't value too much of the external. I value myself. I am valuable. I am valuable to the world. I'm valuable to myself. That would be a good thought to have. But, seeing the truth can be painful. You have to go all the way, whether you like it or not. So we had this client, she had cancer. And of course, I came up with this forgiveness test, as you all know. And I don't even know if other rebirthers do it, but I always do it. And so I said to her, what level of forgiveness do you have in such and such, and mother, father, and everything. She got extremely low scores on forgiveness. So I said, you won't heal yourself until you forgive their mother and blah, blah, blah. And I tried to help her. She refused to forgive her mother, and she never came back. So that's what I mean by the truth sometimes is too confronting for people. But if you want to be clear, you have to go all the way, whether you like it or not. Well, we're not talking about indulging in suffering. We're talking about taking responsibility to know yourself. As you know, all of you have been with us for a long time, so you already are doing that, and I really acknowledge you for that you're taking responsibility to know yourself better. What most people are just kind of living a second babyhood. They're just rerunning their childhood, and they've never dissolved the mother inside of them. They're looking for their mother. And you have to, people have to get over this thing, I need my mother, and my essence is supposed to replace my mother. But people are always looking for a mate who will mother them. And when you do the work, you kind of risk being unfaithful to your mother because you're not doing it the way she did it, You're not doing it the way she did it. Now, it kind of makes me think of this story. For part of our getting clear, we like to watch Joel Osteen, who's got the largest congregation in the world. He's got a whole stadium. Now, in Houston, Texas, you probably know about him. How can he fill the whole stadium? Because he is good, okay? He is sharp and he is clear. If you want to see somebody that's clear, just watch him and get the vibration of clarity, okay? And he's so happy and he's so high and he just downloads all this fantastic information with no notes. I need to look at my notes for guidelines, but he doesn't. Anyway, yes, it's Christian in tone, and some people say, well, yeah, it's too Christian and, you know, it's born again. Well, he does give some Bible verses that are very helpful, but he's totally metaphysical, totally. And he's always talking about thought is creative and how you can, you know, and it's so inspiring. So we watch that to help us get clear. When we're a little bit down, we always watch the Joel Osteen sermon, which is free. And then I posted it on my Facebook, and Marcus's sister got all upset with me. She says, oh, Joel Osteen, he makes too much money, and, you know, blah, 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 and he's just out for money. And I doubt that she's even listened to him once. You know, I don't care how much money he makes. He deserves it. Nobody that I know besides Babaji is as clear as he is clear. That's how I feel. He is that clear. So if you want to have a vibration of someone's clear, listen to Joel Osteen's talks and just ignore the part that you think is too Christian. But he's not heavy on that anyway. He gives very common sense, metaphysical things. And it's free and it's very uplifting. And so to me, he's an example of somebody really clear on our planet right now. Okay, so the work I'm talking about, the work you have to do on yourself to get clear is the lifeline to your real existence. And it can't be in addition to everything else you do. That's the problem. See, people say, well, yeah, I have all this to do and all that to do and that to do, and then maybe I'll have some time to work on myself. No, it can't be in addition to all the other things you do. It has to be like your top priority. It's not like joining a club where you go play tennis once a month, you know, or a dance class. It has to be the most important thing in your life. So I noticed Marcus and I are increasing our devotions now more and more. So we're getting a really good routine. We realized that at the beginning of the pandemic, before we had the vaccination, we did Om Namah Shivaya because Babaji said do 10 rounds of Om Namah Shivaya a day to prevent the virus. So we did. And we did that for months. And we felt really good and we didn't get sick. And this is all before we had the vaccination. But then at some point we stopped doing that. Well, then recently we got a little book, and it's a little book about somebody talking. Babaji was channeling something from another advanced guru, and he was saying the name of God is the most important thing for your clarity. So we've now started doing Om Namah Shivaya again, and it feels really good. So we do 5 rounds at the beginning of our devotions and 5 rounds at the end of our devotions. So you know our devotion routine. We've told you many times. We just added that now. So we sit down, we do the mantra. Then we read something in the text. And then we do our forgiveness and our gratitude and our petition, and then we read something from the workbook. And now we're starting over at the workbook on lesson 1 for yesterday, lesson 2. Today's January 2nd, and we've done it so many times, but each time you reread it, you get something more out of it. And what I got out of it, I've been doing the work of the Course in Miracles, but I was never, ever doing it like they said. Okay, they would say in about, after you get to lesson 200 or something, think this thought, you know, so many times a day. We weren't doing that, or I wasn't doing that. So I wasn't totally following what Jesus said. So now I said to Marcus, okay, if we're going to start the Course in Miracles all over again, I want to do it correctly. So if it says we're supposed to think this lesson every hour, I want you to set the clock so the buzzer goes off so that we can remember to do it, say it every hour. So that's our commitment. We're trying to do the work at a higher level now. And we'll see how that goes. So we're trying to make that the most important thing in our life right now. So then after we do the lessons, the Course in Miracles, then we chant the Arti, which is something new we added this year during Navaratri. Since we can't go to India, we figured we should make the Navaratri here. But anyway, I just want to remind you, this will threaten your false life. And look at us. We started with the mantra, which worked, 10 rounds a day. We did that for months. Then we quit, just like other people do. They quit. And then we realized we didn't feel as good after we quit, so now we're going back to it. So, you have to forgive yourself when you slip up. Okay, you say you're going to do the lesson every day in the course or the mantra every day. And then you forget and you slip up and you just have to forgive yourself. And, okay, I have a new day. I can start over. I have another chance. Yeah, so you have to insert yourself, but you don't want to use your individuality against the work. You want to be yourself and you want to be assertive, but you don't want to assert your individuality against the work, which is what a lot of people do. So your relationship to the teaching is what I'm talking about. For getting clear, has to be respect. Your relationship to the teaching of the course or to the teaching of breath work or the teaching of Babaji or whatever, you have to have respect, you have to have consideration, love, appreciation, gratitude, and service to humanity. All those things, when you're doing the work, to get clear, you have to have that attitude. I respect the work, I respect the teaching, I have consideration for it, I love it, I appreciate it, I have gratitude, and I feel like serving, And then so recently, I decided I wanted to do another aspect of service, so I called up a shelter for women, and I offered to volunteer. Well, I haven't heard back from the person who's the right person yet, so I have to call again. But that's kind of a new service I want to offer this year, to help women in shelters who have been abused, to help them figure out why they attracted the abuse so they won't attract it again. Maybe we can reverse some of them for free. I don't know, this is just a new service that I want to do now. So, whatever you're doing could be useless unless you're doing this kind of work on yourself. If your essence isn't in it, it might be useless. So you have to give to the teaching completely, and you don't want to project your parents onto the teaching. Now that's another thing we run into. People like to have us help them with their problems, and they're very grateful that when we do help them, they're very appreciative. Not that we need all this gratitude, but they give it. But then they start setting us up as their parents, and then they rebel against us, And it happens quite a bit. But we're sharp enough to pick it up. So if they start doing that, then they get mad and they might go away. And, so that's a danger, projecting your parents onto the teaching. And you got to watch that tendency. When you're working on yourself, to get clear, you have to have this attitude as a warrior. I'm a spiritual warrior. That's what you have to have. I'm a spiritual warrior. And you really need to be impeccable, okay? And I'm talking about in your whole life, be impeccable. Because I'm a Virgo, I'm pretty impeccable with neatness, as you know how I feel about that subject. And the other day, the maid came right before the new year and cleaned everything. And not that it was that dirty, but she cleaned all the parts that I wouldn't do. And I sat here and I thought, wow, my place is in perfect order right now. It felt so good to say that to me. So I feel my apartment is in perfect order. Okay, then my body should be in perfect order, my business should be in perfect order. And I kept thinking about this feeling of perfect order and how good it felt. So that's kind of a way I work on myself too, is try to be impeccable. And to try to do your very best, that. You have to be completely in love with yourself, and you have to love whatever's presented to you. So if something's presented to you that's kind of weird, you have to love it anyway and say, oh, this is my teaching. Everything is a spiritual opportunity. And don't go down and get upset. Just look at it and say, what's the lesson here for me? Now, it's very useful to have a guide when you are on a spiritual path doing the work. And the guide is going to help you take the leap to a higher consciousness. And so that's why we recommend a teacher. You want a teacher, and the teacher doesn't want to waste their time on a student who's not progressing. So if you want to maintain the relationship with the teacher, you have to progress. And the teacher, if the teacher saved you from everything, you wouldn't learn anything. There is kind of a value in some struggle. I mean, I've had to struggle through a lot of stuff. I wish Babaji would have just taken it from me. But the struggle was like digestion. You know, I was able to digest the issue by struggling a little bit. So the teacher, more or less, is not going to save you from everything, but the teacher is going to push you to go through it. I remember I took a group one time to India, and everybody went nuts, because you know the ashram is like a, Amaji said the ashram is like an insane asylum, right? Everybody's craziness comes up, their ego comes up. So I went to Muni Raj, I said, my group has gone crazy. that everybody was completely nuts that day in my group. I told him, he said, don't babysit them. That was his answer. Let them go through it. Don't babysit them. In other words, don't save them from all this. Just let them go through it. And he laughed. You know, he thought they're... And then, of course, they all got better when they stayed with the process. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about what I consider steps to getting clear. There's 4 I'm going to give you. And I think this is the right formula myself for getting clear. Number 1, you have the dream team, which is Babaji, Jesus of the Course in Miracles, and the Divine Mother. You know, we always talk about that. They are your team. Number 2, you have the Course in Miracles and you're doing it. These things are going to help you get clear. Number 3, you do the breathing, and you have private sessions when you need them, and you know when you need them. And number 4, you're in a relationship. Now, why do I say that? Because a relationship will definitely force you to get clear. And it will push you. Because your partner will bring up all your unconscious stuff. That's what I like about it being in a relationship, because it's so interesting. You can go through these things in a loving way, but your partner is your guru. So you're living with your guru. So, you know, getting in a relationship is one of the best ways. A lot of people say, oh, my life is perfect. I don't have any problems. And they live alone. I say, yeah, go get in a relationship and find out how clear you are. Right away you'll find out. Because your stuff will come up and how to handle that relationship. And so number 1, the dream team is available to help you get clear. The Course in Miracles, the breathing, and the relationship will help you get clear. That's my formula for getting. Those are the things I use to get clear anyway. You can borrow them or not. Okay. Let's look at what you learned from the pandemic. And that would be a way to get clear, is to see what I learned from this pandemic and how I can incorporate that in my spiritual life. So let's go around and we'll share that. Okay, Prue, you want to start? What's the main thing you've learned in this pandemic for yourself?
Well, I experienced the joys of more containment. Of being able to do more work on myself. Yes.
So because of the pandemic, you've had time to work on yourself more. Yeah. So what is the main thing you learned working on yourself during the pandemic?
That I could develop worldwide connections and prosper from that. That's foremost in my mind. I'm sure there's more, but
okay.
That's just what comes.
All right, yeah. Good. Well, you can add more later if you get something. Okay, yeah. Norma, what's the main thing you learned?
Similar to Prue is that being, I guess, in semi-lockdown or whatever, I've enjoyed it a lot, and I get to do a lot of internal work. So then what have I learned about myself is, I guess there's a lot to unwrap, and I think I've definitely got more in touch with my own divinity too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the main thing you had to clear in your personal process?
Oh, forgiving and my anger issues.
Okay. Wonderful. So
I think so.
that's important. Very, very important. Okay, Marta. Well, how has this pandemic been for you?
Well, I'm a very reclusive person anyway, so I didn't have any problems with the lockdown and anything. And I do meditate and do mantras and Course in Miracles, etc. But what surprised me about myself is that after a year of being in lockdown, I always thought that, being totally recluse would be my heaven. But when I became a total recluse for over a year, I've realized that people actually enrich my life, and I'm very intentional about enjoying being with people.
Right.
That the connection, and which was a big surprise for me.
Right. Well, I think all of us learned that, didn't we? That we miss being with people. I can remember I missed hugging people. And I remember the first time that they started, letting go of some of the mask rules and all that. And somebody came over and I thought, well, can I hug this person or can't I? I wasn't sure, And I really missed that. And so, yeah, I think we all found out that friends, contacts are super important in our life. Thank you. Okay. Who's next here? Oh, Pam.
Okay, so this is cool. I wasn't sure at first, but thankfully I've had a couple of minutes to think about it. So I think, like everybody, during the pandemic, this opportunity, getting the opportunity to be closer to our teachers, like you guys, like the ashram, all these things has been such a blessing. And I think one thing that I learned from that personally that came up for me was, or learning how to do this during the pandemic is owning this more as part of my life, telling other people, like, this is part of my life. I'm a devotee of Babaji, a student of Babaji, and just not hiding that anymore, because I wanted to hide that. I wanted to fit in and belong and all this work on myself. And so
thank you.
Just accepting this and being willing to start telling the truth about it.
Okay, that's good. I'm happy to hear that. The people need to know that's available. I feel sorry for some of these people who were single and didn't have a spiritual life, I guess they just watched a lot of TV or something. I don't know. But I mean, and then they indulge in all the news, which is so negative. I try to just read the headlines, because if I start listening, we don't even have a TV for this reason. But if I started reading the news or indulging in it online, it's just depressing, and it creates more fear. But I know some people that are single during the pandemic, and they don't have any relationships. They couldn't be with their friends, and they just listen to the news, and they really got depressed, So imagine not having a spiritual life and being in the pandemic, Those people really, I wonder how they're doing. Okay, Kathy?
I'm the same as what everybody else has said. I really enjoyed the silence and doing internal work. What bothers me is watching all the fear that's going on in the world.
Right.
So I'm just trying to keep my energy up and be a beacon of light to shine through to help other people.
Right, good, yeah. Right, okay, when the pandemic started, what I learned, because I was a nurse, and I was a healer in many lifetimes, I went into, oh my God, I've never seen in my lifetime the masses so terrified of dying, and the fear that came up at the beginning when everybody was dying. And I saw this and I got so, my compassion came up, and, you know, I wanted to have empathy. And so I thought, oh my God, I want to help. My nursing career, all my history of nursing for 14 years and all my past lives as a healer came up, and I wanted to help. So I kind of went into how can I help all these people telepathically, and, you know, and I made the mistake of going down to their suffering and trying to pull them up telepathically, which was wrong. And that is not true empathy. You don't, in the Course in Miracles, it says true empathy is you don't match the suffering, you know, and that's what I was doing. I was going down to the suffering and trying to pull them up like a nurse or something. And that didn't work for me, and that's the main thing I've had to learn, that I have to not agree with the suffering and stay high and bring people up to where I am instead of me going down to where they're. So this was a very hard lesson for me, and because I didn't get that, I got some symptoms. So that was my biggest lesson. And I got such huge lessons, and probably because I did these long rebirthings every week with Babaji too. But another lesson I got was my father was sick all the time when I was a child. He had rheumatic heart disease. He had rheumatic fever when he was 14. Then his brother died in a plane crash in front of the whole town, one of these bi-wing planes on the 4th of July, which exploded in the air. So everybody went crazy. His death urge got totally activated, and he became very sick. So my childhood, I had a father sick at home all the time, and then off and on going to the hospitals. So I had it wired up that if I stay home, I'll get sick. You know, I didn't even know this till the pandemic. This is why I've been running around the world my whole life, traveling and traveling and traveling. As you know, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. When Kennedy announced the Peace Corps, I was in the first 10 groups that ever existed. And that was my boot camp for world service, and I've been traveling ever since. Then when I started rebirthing, I kept traveling all over the world and traveling over. So because I was traveling all the time, I didn't have to face this fear of staying home. So for me, I think I went through more than the average people in the pandemic, because I had a thought, and I didn't figure this out till halfway through the pandemic. If I stay home, I can't be healthy. So that was another thing I had to overcome. So I had these two huge lessons, one about empathy and one about staying home and being sick. So that, I would say, I don't think I ever would have got those patterns if I hadn't gone through the pandemic. So those were my main lessons. And then I already told you earlier, the other lessons I got were about fear, anger, and guilt has to be released. And all the suppressed anger, suppressed fear, suppressed guilt that you don't know you have, it has to come out. And, you know, Amaji said it's inevitable. There's 3 big shadows, she said. There's the personal shadow, the family shadow, and the religious shadow. You have to clear. To be clear, you have to get rid of those shadows. Well, the personal shadow is your case, your karma, your personal lie, your birth trauma, etc. The family shadow is all the family patterns we talk about in the LRT. And then the religious shadow is all the dogma you learned in church that was off. And she said it's inevitable that those things are going to come up sooner or later. You can avoid them for a long time, but eventually these shadows will come up. Getting clear means you get rid of those shadows, and getting clear means you get rid of the 5 biggies. As you know, when I met Leonard, the first day I met Leonard, he was outside on a hill in Santa Cruz, California, and he had a flip chart. And I'd never seen anybody with a flip chart outside. And I was having a lot of problems. I was having car accidents. My hair was falling out from a divorce and blah, blah, blah. And I had a pain in my body. And the first thing he did is put these 5 biggies on this flip chart. You know, number 1 is your birth trauma. 2 is specific negative thoughts, like your personal lie. 3 is the parental disapproval syndrome. 4 is the unconscious death urge, and 5 is other lifetimes. Well, okay, I looked at that list and I thought, oh my God, the cause of all my problems is somewhere in that list. I haven't handled any of that. So I've been working on clearing the 5 biggies ever since rebirthing started. It's an ongoing thing. I mean, yeah, it took me quite a few years to get through my whole birth trauma, but I did. And then you start working on your parental disapproval. I got through that. But working on your unconscious death urge, that takes a long time, you know. And when your family members die, it gets activated. So getting clear, to me, includes working on those shadows that Amaji talked about and working on the 5 biggies. And that's a lifelong spiritual thing. And, you know, it can be fun, too, to work on these things. Avoiding them just causes pain. Avoiding them causes pain. And so don't be alarmed if more stuff comes up this year because, you know, like I said, until we're like Jesus and Babaji and we have nothing to clear and we can walk on water, then we're okay. But until then, we have something to clear. Does anybody have any questions? Because we got 5 more minutes. Anything you want to talk about on any subject? And questions about your own process or your health issues or anything. Right now you have a chance. Marta, did you have something?
Only because nobody else raised
Okay,
the
well,
question.
go ahead. Thank you. Yeah,
How
please.
to clear death urge?
Okay, good. How to clear death urge. That's a good one. Yeah, so anytime you're depressed, that's part of your death urge. Anytime you're sick, obviously, that's part of your death urge. And there's a lesson in the Course in Miracles that says anytime you're not even happy, that's part of your death urge. So it's a big question, very good question. So first of all, you want to strengthen your life urge. The first thing I would do is read the book on physical immortality, how to overcome death. Maybe you need to read it again if you've read it. And then there's a lot of books in the back that are recommended. So what we did to clear our death urge in the beginning, which I'm very grateful of, Leonard made us do this, for 1 whole year, those of us that were in the 1-year seminar, we read nothing but books on physical immortality for 1 whole year. I don't know if you've heard me say this, but maybe you've never tried it. If you did hear me say it, it works. The books are listed in the back of Physical Immortality in the bibliography. And we read nothing but those books. We didn't read any other books for 1 year. And then we would meet once a month, and we would all stand up and share what we had learned from them. We each read different books, and then we'd stand up and teach what we had learned in our book. And that really, I think, strengthened my life urge more than anything. And then breathing out the death urge with consciousness, having a private session to work on giving up your death urge, of course, helps. And do whatever is life-enhancing to you. Whatever you feel makes you feel more alive, you do only that. And things that don't make you feel alive, you don't do those things, you know. So you keep observing what things you're doing. Is this making me feel more alive and more holy, or is this making me feel more dead? And then you got to be careful what kind of people you're around, you know. And, you know, yeah, it's just discrimination. Which people are strengthening your life urge and which ones are draining you, you know. Some people will literally drain your life urge. And they have a low frequency, and so they bring you down. And so you hang out with the right people. And observe the places you go. Does it raise your energy or does it lower your energy? And you keep observing energy. You know, when we were young in our 20s, I never thought about energy. I never thought about observing energy. Well, then when I started rebirthing, you become very sensitive. So you start noticing energy. Well, then I started consciously working on energy. Which people raised my energy, which people lowered my energy, which books raised my energy. I mean, don't read books where the author is not enlightened. You'll just get more confused. Because if the author does not understand thought is creative, forget it. You're just going to get more confused by that book. So only read enlightened books where the author understands that. Does that help? Those are some suggestions I have. And yeah, so, you know, that's why we watch Joel Osteen. He always raises our life urge. Always. So that's another thing. And then, you know, doing the RT and listening to chants. And the other thing we've been doing to raise our life urge is listening to the Goma breeze, the Goma music, Sacred Source, Ocean of Devotion, and River of Grace. And try to listen to that almost every day and breathe to it. So that helps me strengthen my life urge a lot, especially I've been doing that during the pandemic. And so, and of course rebirthing, as you know. But call in Babji for your sessions. You know, that's what I did. And so I just want to close by telling you that I now am looking for 12 people. And if you want to volunteer, send me an email. Okay, so what I'm going to do on February 14th, which is Babaji's Samadhi Day, Valentine's Day, we're probably going to start a rebirthing school on that day. We're going to have an LRT before that, a special LRT for Valentine's Day. Marcus will send all this out. But on February 14th at 9 a.m., before we start our other class, I am going to read from my new book, Outside the Box with Babaji. I'm just going to sit and read it. Now, this is what Babaji told me to do. I've never done anything like this. I want 12 volunteers it's a free opportunity. You don't have to pay anything. All you have to do is listen to me reading, and you can lie down. In fact, Babaji prefers you lie down while I'm reading this. And it will go on for 30 minutes. And it's pretty intense stuff that I've been writing in this book, because a lot of it's coming to me from Babaji. Some of it's coming from me. Some of it's coming from us. I can't explain how I'm getting this. I'm not leaving my body and not letting Babaji take over. That I don't like that. I'm not that kind of a channel. I don't know if you say I'm channeling Babaji. I don't know what it is. But during these breathes I've had, I call them Babaji breathes, and I would breathe a couple hours. I would receive information. A lot of it was for me, my own case. A lot of it was for anybody. And it's pretty darn interesting. And Babaji said, you need to hear it again yourself, so you need to read this for yourself, and then other people should listen to it, and they'll get something out of it. So this is an experiment I want to do. On Valentine's Day at 9 a.m. EST, before we start the class, I am going to read from that book for half an hour. If you guys want to be there and be the volunteers, I'd be very happy. Just send me an email and say you want to be there so I know you're coming. And that's an experiment. And then I probably will start doing that every week. And it's called Outside the Box with Babaji. So that's one of my new projects. And the other thing that I want to say in closing is I'm happy to report that Marcus has been videoing sections of the LRT in 15-minute sections. And we've done the whole LRT, and we're putting it online now for the whole world can have it. And it's going to go on a group called Udemy. They promote it and stuff. So that project Marcus finished yesterday, so I want to say I'm really happy that he finished that at the end of the year. And so the LRT will be available at any time for anybody. So that's the news from here. So if you guys want to be there on February 14th, send me an email, and I'm really glad to be with you today. I hope I got you to be more committed to your path and to stay on the path and to get clear. And I know you're all doing really well in general. I hardly had to say this to you guys, you're already doing it. But anyway, spread the word. Okay, that's it then. Bole Baba Ki Jai.
That was wonderful.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye-bye. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.